Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Rogue Mage, the new Gwent single-player game, formerly known as Golden Nekker. Last time we completed several encounters, including one against our first elite enemy, and it was significantly more challenging than the previous battles we've gone into, so that does perhaps mean things might get a little trickier still, because today we are perhaps looking at going in against our first big boss. Let's hop in. Alright, so let's see. Where exactly were we? I think we're currently right here after a normal battle. And we're looking at perhaps hopping straight into another normal battle. No real choices there direction-wise, but just getting a lay of the land here. After that, we'll have a place of power. Let's see, energy-wise. 47 is not great. I mean, it should be plenty for a normal battle, I would think. But we have several more battles here. Yeah, actually, a whole lot of battles leading up to our final boss. So we are not going to have much time to rejuvenate our energy in between now and then, which does concern me a bit. Probably will want to restore at this place of power, but then, I mean, we've not had the most luck at these events here in the past. Pretty much, I think we've had two, and we've pretty much been 0 for 2 thus far. One that actually would have given us the chance to fully restore our energy, but at a pretty significant cost. So that is, I mean, in some ways, it's the kind of thing we'd like to have, perhaps, in preparation for this. So there is a place of power there as well, so probably can look to go that route as well, but alas, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here, so why don't we hop into this next match right here and see what is in store. We have found, I believe, ooh, vampire. I think we found that even these normal battles have picked up in difficulty a bit here as we progress. So let's see, what is our deal? Give a random non-bleeding enemy unit bleeding. I suppose that's fitting for a vampire. Then increase bleeding duration on all enemy units by 1. Oh, okay, so the bleed is really going to start to pick up here over time. And that is going to make it harder for us to build up power on cards like Trident Infantry, although this is a great target for our boosts, and we do have some boosters like Temerian Drummer and Zoltan Shive. And Recruit can give us a little bit of boost as well, and then we can double up all those boosts on the Trident Infantry using this Girdle of Giant Strength. So this is a good combo. You do wonder, I mean, this will definitely be our first turn booster, because the earlier we get this down, the more total boost we'll get. These two are good toward the end of the round, because they are not time sensitive, because you do it once and you're done. But might we be able to do better than Recruit? Possibly. Especially because we did just recently upgrade Reynard, and he is very, very strong now, so that's a big deal to get him. So it's now boost all allied units by 1, wherever they are, whether they're on the board, in our hand, or even in our deck. Whenever you play a unit, excuse me, whenever you play a unit, boost it by 1 and give it 1 armor. Okay. In some ways, we might even prefer to play Reynard before we play Trident Infantry in that case. The problem is, our opponent, it looks like, is going to just rain bleed upon us, and that could make it so that cards, especially the ones that we play early, are at risk of getting destroyed, and bleed is kind of slow, because it's only at most 1 damage per turn, but I guess we stick with this. Okay, and we drew into another Recruit here. Now, it's not a bad card, per se. I know we got rid of one last time around, but it just is a slightly different use case here, where it's going to be a card we want to play later on in the round. So now that we have a couple of cards that we want to play early, that's, you know, a little more of a balanced hand here. So why don't we... Trying to think. Timing-wise of Reynard, since he boosts cards everywhere, including in our hand, technically speaking, we do not need to play him early. We could play him even at the very end and boost everything on the board, whereas previously he only boosted cards that were right next to him. Mostly just that. So we wanted to wait a little bit before playing him in order to get that, but, oh, and he boosted every card that we played once he was already on the board. So, yeah, I was kind of balancing that. Wanted to play him probably second, third turn in that case, but now we could wait. So I think that means Temerian Drummer is probably the best first turn play, because we will immediately start getting the boost on this Hedge Knight, which is another reason why, although it didn't seem all that significant at the time, getting a unit that starts out at 6 power and automatically starts on the board, it does mean we can immediately have a target for those boosts, which is convenient as well. Okay, there's all the bleed. Arcane, at the end of your turn, if your opponent controls at least one unit that has bleeding, boosts self by 1, so they're going to deal out the bleeds with this Highborn Vampire and then get boosted on this Garcane. Okay, we have another Temerian Drummer, which we could use to boost up this Temerian Drummer, if we'd like. And that's the thing, because even though this Temerian Drummer has 2 points of bleed, that just means the bleed lasts 2 turns, but bleed still only deals at most 1 damage per turn. So that is why, with something like a Temerian Drummer, we can basically just cancel out the effects of that bleed. Now, there are some cards, at least in multiplayer Gwent, that can capitalize more on a card that has some bleed built up on it and turn what would normally be slow damage into much higher burst damage. So I think we'll still go with Temerian Drummer here and try to keep this one alive, and then we'll sneak in the Trident Infantry in between one of them after that.
Again and again and again.
So you see, it takes the damage, but it immediately gets boosted up, so it stays on 4 power. Okay, Thirsty Dame gets boosted whenever we receive a status. So that's another card that's going to get boosted from the bleed. Now, this could actually be a good time for us to bring out One-Eyed Betsy, because although we are primarily a boosting deck, this is a good opportunity for us to destroy that Thirsty Dame before she has the chance to turn into a 1 point per turn engine, because the longer she stays on the board, the stronger she's going to become. So if we can just prevent that altogether from happening with One-Eyed Betsy, then that would be very nice, I think. Does significantly limit their long-term potential. So let's go that route. I know it does mean we're delaying the Trident Infantry a bit here, but I think we've still been able to get good value out of what we played. Okay, Catechin. Is it the same as multiplayer Gwent? It spawns in Ekimaras. And... oh, okay, it's the old Catechin. This is interesting to see. I'm curious. So there are a bunch of cards, as we've said many times before, that have either identical abilities to what the cards have in multiplayer Gwent, or they're very similar with some slight modifications, usually to make them a little bit stronger. However, we've also seen on a few occasions there are cards that in multiplayer Gwent have recently been reworked to do something either slightly different or totally different. And so this is what the Catechin used to do several months ago in Gwent multiplayer, but it no longer does this in Gwent or not this exact thing in Gwent multiplayer, which makes me wonder, is that because Rogue Mage was developed initially at a time when that's what this Catechin did? Or did they deliberately choose to stick with its old ability even though it has changed and they could have gone for the new one? So perhaps gives us a little bit of insight on the inside, behind-the-scenes info on how this game got built. But anyways, back to the task at hand here. We do have a new card that's receiving the bleed. We actually don't care too much if they're trying to mess with the Hedge Knight. That's not really as concerning. It's a unit that has points, but it does not generate additional value over time, unlike the Temerian Drummers. So this could be a good time to play Trident Infantry. It could also be a good time to sneak in the Nekkers, because that's another card that we want to play on the early side. So I think, once again, this is technically 2 points per turn. This is 1 additional point per turn. So this is better long-term, if we can make that work. And these guys will continue to boost Oriana. Okay, that's, speaking of engines that get more powerful over time, at least in multiplayer Gwent, she is absolutely one of them. Okay, so give an enemy unit bleeding equal to the number of allied units. Slightly stronger than in multiplayer Gwent. In multiplayer Gwent, it is allied vampires, although that's functionally the same thing here. At the end of your turn, boost self by the number of bleeding enemy units. That's the thing that is scary, is because they're going to get a lot of bleeding from this Highborn Vampire. If they spread out that bleed across multiple of our cards, then this Oriana will get huge. So that's a little scary. We did draw into Ramona. This is the last card we're going to draw. So I think this actually is useful here in particular because it allows us to get a second Trident Infantry down here, so we can put one in between these Temerian Drummer, or this Temerian Drummer where it gets boosted, and then we can put another one right here where it'll also get boosted. So that does probably benefit us, although this Temerian Drummer has now become the target of the bleed. So that's potentially a card that could run into some issues here. Let's go here first. We don't care that much about the Hedge Knight getting boosted. And there you see, not only did we boost both Nekkers from Ramon directly, but also from this Trident Infantry. So we got a double boost twice, which is why playing that Nekker early is so good. So we will get some damage from this getting boosted. Crimson Curse, another great card. It will spawn a row effect for what might be the first time we've seen it in Rogue Mage. So basically, for the next 4 turns, we will have this effect in place. At the start of our turn, a given unit in the row will receive 2 bleeding, so more bleeding synergies. If the unit is already bleeding, it will get damaged by 2 instead. So it's just lots and lots of bleed and damage to cards that are already bleeding. So this is one of the ways in which they can get functionally more than just 1 point per turn of damage from bleed. And that's where the Sumerian Drummer is going to start to take quite a beating. So we might go, I mean, technically, yes, we want to go Trident Infantry here. We might need to intervene a bit and boost up Sumerian Drummer with possibly a Recruit, just to make sure that it does not actually get taken out by this bleed. I mean, points-wise, we're still doing okay here. But we are going to lose some of our value, and Parasite is just pure damage on, okay, our other Sumerian Drummer, the one that had more power and was perhaps one that we were more likely to see survive. So that does stink. We could use Liliana to get it back, though. In fact, I think almost certainly will want to do just that. So why don't we go with Reynard? Then we'll use Liliana to get the Sumerian Drummer out and probably put it right back where it was. I think that's probably our best course of action here, unless we want to get a little bit clever and go with Zoltan so we can boost up both of the Trident Infantries in 1 turn, since he boosts adjacent units, and this would be the one time in which we can get double Trident Infantry boost when normally there would be a Sumerian Drummer in between. So I mean, there's kind of something to be said for that. Sort of. But I think we do go Reynard, because this 2-power Sumerian Drummer is at risk of getting destroyed if we don't boost every card on the board. So I think we do go that route here. I think we still do that. And positioning-wise, I mean, technically we do want Reynard to survive for a while because he does give us additional value. But let's do this. So you could maybe even make a case for boosting up Reynard just to make sure that he does not get destroyed, but I think we'll be fine. And we're continuing to get the additional damage.
You simply must pay my estate a visit one day.
From the boosts on the Trident Infantry. This is another really good finishing card. Destroy an enemy unit with a status. We might have seen this once before, I think, thus far in Rogue Mage. And we did have a Trident Infantry that was on 9 power that had 1 bleed, so it's all it needed to remove that Trident Infantry, which does stink because we had gotten that pretty highly boosted up. And this is almost certainly going to be the one that we want to use Girdle of Giant Strength on, but still. And one thing that I've definitely noticed with Rogue Mage versus Gwent multiplayer. Gwent multiplayer, you actually, for what it's worth, you technically can play single player. You can play against a CPU and do a practice match. The CPUs, not only do they tend to use bad decks, they also tend to have pretty darn bad AI, where they'll just target the first thing you play there, regardless of whether it is actually an important card. But that's a good example of the AI in Rogue Mage has been very solid thus far. Made a point of going after what was one of our most valuable units there, whereas they could have just gone after, I don't know if there was a much weaker card that had some bleed on it, like Sumerian Drummer here. They could have gotten rid of that and would have still been decent value for them. Maybe not quite as valuable as getting rid of the big Trident Infantry, but still, kind of impressive. Kind of impressive. I think that's definitely an achievement for CD Projekt Red to vastly improve the AI. But I think now, technically, we should go Recruit. So we get a boost on Zoltan with that 1 boost in our hand. The thing that gives me hesitation is that if we go Zoltan now, we can put it possibly even in between these 2 Sumerian Drummers. I know that means we're missing out on the boost on Trident Infantry. Yeah, we should put it there, though. I was going to say, so we can maybe prolong this Sumerian Drummer's life slightly longer. Then again, it's 1 boost per turn, so we want it to stay on the board as long as possible. toward the end of the match. That means if it does go down, we're missing, what, 1-2 points of boost. It's not a huge deal, whereas getting the additional boosts on Trident Infantry, assuming that we're going to double those boosts, is definitely far more valuable than the 1 or 2 boosts we get from keeping this Sumerian Drummer alive. So I think it is still going to be, well, this first.
New orders? No.
Okay, and that's also what receives the boost from, I think, oh no, that was just from Rainer. Other thing worth noting that probably doesn't need to be mentioned, but for the sake of mentioning it nonetheless, when your opponent does play a row effect like Blood Moon, for the most part you want to try to not play cards in that row, because otherwise they're going to take more damage. Gale, that is one of the cards I was referring to that can get additional value from cards that have bleeding. This is going to be on the Sumerian Drummer, because what it does, let's see, damage an enemy unit by 1. If it's bleeding, damage it by 3 instead. So that's how it was able to destroy that Sumerian Drummer. Boost self by the destroyed unit's power. So Gale would have been on 4, but because it destroyed a 4-power Temerian Drummer, it got boosted up to an 8. So that is how they built up the power there. Now we're still, thus far, doing okay, points-wise. So, and we do still have some big finishers planned here. So I think we may still proceed with our initial idea. I don't even remember what card that was that they did there. Purify and damage enemy unit by 3. And then I think give it bleed. If you control vampires, at least what that card does in multiplayer. Yeah. So, not enough to immediately destroy this Sumerian Drummer. So I think we still proceed with our plan of doubling up on the Trident Infantry, which should give us a pretty huge lead here. No energy needed, I don't think. And fortunately, as well, Trident Infantry does not have a status, so it's not like they're gonna just casually waltz on in here with, oh, I know what we just destroyed. It was Vincent. Not like they're just gonna drop a Vincent and destroy a 36 power card, because that would hurt a lot. So feeling pretty good about where we're standing here. It's Protoflutter, that's another card that benefits from doubling down on the bleed. Gets boosted by the total duration of bleed on a card, but it's not enough for them to catch us, and apparently we've unlocked an achievement. I did not even see what it was, though. Or at least did not have time to read it in full, because that was a long description. But alas, we beat the Highborn Vampire. So one other thing that came to mind was we saw previously that at one of those places of power where we could power all the way up to 100 energy, but at the cost of losing, or rather gaining some wound cards that presumably just did nothing at all and were a waste of space, and therefore risked that one of the cards we draw into in a match is going to do absolutely nothing to contribute to our deck. That would be perhaps the most obvious choice to remove from your deck. So maybe that's not as high of a priority if we're just talking about really fine-tuning our deck, because again, technically speaking, we only play and draw into a certain number of cards in a match. So our objective with a deck is generally going to be to make those cards that we do play as strong as possible, and the ones that we don't play technically don't matter to us. So if we could, for example, remove all of our bad cards so we only have all of the good cards, that means we're always going to get them, and therefore increase our consistency, increase our effectiveness in battles. So that's kind of the theory, at least, behind removing cards from your deck, as well as just obviously removing the blatantly terrible cards like Wounds, but we don't have any of those right now. So I don't think it's that urgent, and this late on in our run, I think it might make more sense to add something to our deck, assuming we can get something decent here. So let's see. Well, we've seen these guys before. Oh, actually, okay, I think we've seen all of them. So you see the glowing color around the edges. So in at least multiplayer Gwent, there's common cards have like a gray little aura, or they don't have the aura around them, but they use this little triangle in the corner to signify their rarity. So gray means normal, common rarity. Blue means rare, which is the next most powerful. Then purple means epic, the next most powerful. And then an orangey, yellowish gold is legendary, which is the most powerful. So I assume that that is supposed to be reflective of the rarity and effectiveness here. Oh, yeah. Or maybe it's like an alternate version of a card that is more powerful, because we have a Temerian Drummer. In multiplayer Gwent, Temerian Drummer is rare, so I would have expected this to be blue. However, our existing Temerian Drummer is 4 power and boost a unit to the right by 1 every turn. This is 7 power, so it is a stronger Temerian Drummer. And this does synergize more with the rest of our deck. This gets boosted by 2 whenever we play a card with a deploy ability, which not everything in our deck does. This is a deploy ability. We've seen Morkvarg already. We do have him in our deck. I think, once again, this has higher base power than the Morkvarg that we have thus far, so it is a better version, but it's not quite as synergistic. At times, it can be a great finisher for us if our opponent has a really highly boosted card. We saw that in, I think, the elite enemy. We really wanted it, even though we might have mulliganed out of it at the very beginning of the match, because we didn't anticipate that that was going to be something we wanted, but I think we'll still take Temerian Drummer. It's a little more synergistic. And so that's another example of, if, for example, we got 5 of those 7 power Temerian Drummers that are just objectively better than our other starting Temerian Drummers that have 4 power, we could add in the good ones, and if we found an opportunity to do so, remove the bad ones, or the weaker ones, so that in the future, whenever we do get a Temerian Drummer, we're guaranteed to get the more effective kind. So another case for how you could fine-tune your deck by actually removing cards from it, even though initially that might seem sort of counterintuitive for those of you who are newer to Gwent. Like, why would removing cards make my deck stronger? But let's go into this place of power. That is our next stop. This might be our first yellow one. Okay, transform a card. I don't remember if we've seen this before. It sounds vaguely familiar. At least we've seen the option to transform a card elsewhere, if not from a place of power. So, it's a risk. I don't remember. We might have done this and realized we actually can choose any card in our deck, which is pretty cool. But at the same time, at 47 energy, and knowing that we are getting pretty darn close to the final boss here, I think we're gonna want to get pretty close to maximum energy. I mean, since we can only use 1 spell per turn, I don't really know if we're mathematically even capable of using every last drop of energy in one encounter. So I don't know if we need to be at 100 out of 100 going into that final boss fight, but we'd certainly want to at least be close so that that's not going to become a big factor where, you know, we're 1 step away from winning and then we run out of energy, so we can't pull it off. So I think we do still go, at this stage, for the energy. It definitely seems like early on in a run, when you're mostly going up against the basic enemies, that's when you focus on just upgrading your deck, plain and simple. Hopefully you're not needing to use much energy against the basic encounters. And then, as you start running into the epic or elite enemies, you might need to use some, if we actually use a fair amount of energy in one of those. And so that's where you want to make sure that you have enough time to restock on the energy going into our final boss battle, because at this point, we are, what? We're here? No, we're here. So we have 2, possibly 3 normal battles before we go into the big one. Probably going to go down this route so we can just get the place of power at the end. I think that's going to be preferable at this point, because that's more of a sure thing, whereas going into an additional battle, sure, we might get a card upgrade. We could, but we might also need to spend more energy, and we don't want to do that right before the boss battle. And even if we do get a better card, there's a chance that we don't draw into it going into that boss battle, in which case there's no upside. And defeat it to obtain a mutagen. Okay. Okay. Let's proceed then. So once again, normal boss battle here. Or rather, not normal boss battle. Normal battle. Cultist Priest. There are 4 or more units on the battlefield. Hold on. Destroy the lowest power unit, then boost the lowest... Wait, what? Destroy the lowest power unit, then boost the lowest power allied unit by 2. Ooh. That's really weird. Also, I did not even realize that they've had a word below the title of this enemy. Hard, presumably, is to suggest that although this is a normal, quote-unquote, enemy, it is a more difficult one, and perhaps confirms that theory that we had before, that at the very beginning of the run here, the normal enemies we ran into, not that bad, but, I mean, the previous one that we just did, the Vampire, didn't seem that difficult, because Bleed is not usually that strong, since there is still a pretty significant limitation of 1 damage per turn, no matter how much Bleed you stack up. But this is kind of nasty. So that means says destroy the lowest powered unit in that first component of the ability. That is not specify that it needs to be one of our units, so they could potentially destroy one of their units if it is the lowest on the board, and then they'll boost their lowest powered unit by 2. So that part is definitely going to benefit them. But I think our plan here is, if possible, we want to try to make it so that they always have the lowest unit on the board, and that way, sure, they might be getting boosted, and this is happening every turn. So sure, they might be getting boosted by 2 every turn, but if they're also losing a card every turn, then those things can cancel out or maybe even work out in our favor. It is going to take some pretty serious planning, though, and means that we may not have the luxury of playing cards that start small and build up slowly over time, like the Nekker. So I think we probably want to dump you. And then damage might make a little more sense here to try to make sure that they are they're going to have the lowest units on the board, not us. So again, we just saw the option of getting a new Morkvarg. The new Morkvarg would have had 7 power. This one has 5. Still the same deployability, though. And One-Eyed Betsy also with damage here, so I think we will hold on to them here. We do have a potential target for our boosting. Might prefer Trident Infantry, but if we're dumping you... Okay, I feel like we've started with Girdle of Giant Strength in our hand every time we've, or since we've acquired this card until now, but definitely has been a really useful finisher for us, so glad that we did pick it up here. We don't have much in the way of ways to boost up the Eternian Mauler outside of using our energy, so that I don't love. Which means we're actually significantly limited in how much value we can get from this Girdle. So, as much as I do like these guys, maybe we dump one of them? Maybe we dump One-Eyed Betsy. Okay, there's a Temerian Drummer, which does work better with what we're trying to do here, I think. So let's start off... Is this at the start of their turn that this triggers? It's an order ability. I mean, again, assuming that their AI is reasonably smart, which it has been thus far, I think they will use this at the start of their turn and destroy... Oh, but it's only if there are 4 more units on the battlefield, so technically, we might have a little bit of time. I mean, I wanted to go Ramon into Temerian Drummer to get an extra Temerian Drummer on the board, but if we do that, then we're going to be on 3 units on our side immediately. Then they play 1 unit, and then at the end of their turn, they could still use this order ability, which I imagine they'll still be smart enough to realize if they just use the right order of operations. So, I mean, then we do have Liliana, which we could use to bring a card back, but... Alright, I think we're still going to do it, but it is a little questionable.
Lead the lordless dogs until they beg for mercy.
Okay, now I'm actually deliberately going to boost up
Left, right,
this Hedge Knight,
left,
because
right.
what that means is that you're going to be on 7 power at the end of our turn. Temerian Drummer 4, Ramon on 4. So, if they play a card, and that card is bigger than 4, that means there will be more than 4 cards on the board. The lowest cards will be a tie between Temerian Drummer and Ramon. So I don't want to boost Ramon, otherwise he's going to become a 5. And you're definitely the lowest card, you're definitely going to get destroyed. And this has more long-term value than Ramon. Ramon was all about that deployability. You're all about staying on the board now that you're here. So you could potentially even justify using a little boost here from our leader ability just to be certain that Temerian Drummer is going to last. Want to try to save the energy, but I think this one is... It's cheap enough, energy-wise, and it sets us up much more long-term. Well, that stinks. Well, everything's tied at 7 now. Okay, Drone Berserker will deal damage every turn. Except, oh, okay, that's exactly what we wanted. That's exactly what we wanted. So, what happened was they played a card, we reached 4 power, or rather, we reached 4 units on the board, and it just destroyed their unit because it was the lowest unit on the board. So that's one of the reasons why we really wanted to boost things up early. So, yes, it absolutely backfired, and they didn't even have the chance to boost up one of their own units because they didn't have any units remaining at that point. So I love that. Absolutely love that. now, I mean, we're getting even more Temerian drummers here, so I like them a lot, as you can probably tell based on what we've done thus far in this playthrough. But the problem is that this is going to be at least our lowest card at this point, even if we sneak it in next to a Temerian drummer where it's going to get boosted up to a 5. So, bit of a risk there. Bit of a risk there. I mean, we could use Liliana to replay our cleanse and boost you up. At that point, between the boost from the cleanse and the boost from Temerian drummer, you'd get up to an 8. So you would definitely not be the lowest unit on the board at that point. However, we might want to save that ability from Liliana to apply to an Eternian Mauler, because this likely is a card that we're more concerned about investing heavily in. So I think we will try to sneak you in and see if that can be successful. All depends on the power of the card they play next year. And it's 6. Ooh, because this is going to go down. And this is a strong card as well.
Pick up when I'm done with you.
So, Yennefer Conjurer damages the highest power unit or units by 1. So that means that if we have a bunch of cards that are tied for the same amount of power, or tied for the highest amount of power, like right now it'd be this Hedge Knight, it gets damaged by 1, but if everything had 8 power, she would hit all of those 8 powered units simultaneously. So if this gets dropped down to 7, which is not that far away, then she would start damaging all of them. However, that armor on Hedge Knight is actually really helpful. It is one of the best counters against Yennefer Conjurer, at least if that armor is on your tallest unit, because that means Yennefer's going to try to hit this, and it's not going to work so well for her. So, but this is the problem that we are expecting ourselves to run into here, is now cards that we play are likely to be the ones that get destroyed by the Cultist Priest. However, that is one of the reasons why we wanted to make sure that we had at least some damage available to us, because with One-Eyed Betsy, we could drop you down to a 4. With Morkvarg, we can drop you down to the point where you're damaged. You started on 6 power, which means you get dropped down to a 5, which is slightly less effective. We probably want to save this for when they potentially get a more heavily boosted card. So if we play One-Eyed Betsy, and we play her next to Temerian Drummer, she'll get up to a 5. You'll be a 4. Depends. This would get destroyed unless they... yeah. Probably would get destroyed here. So I think that is still the play. We would like, of course, to get that Eternian Mauler down here soon. But I think the longer we can have their ability backfire on them, the better. Melusine Cultist is low power, so that might end up getting destroyed rather than Yennefer. It does. It does boost up Yennefer, though. Okay. So here's our more powerful Temerian Drummer. That's actually great, because that is the difference between a Temerian Drummer that is likely to immediately get destroyed versus one that is not. So now we're looking at Yennefer at 6. If we leave One-Eyed Betsy here, you'll get up to 6 as well. So there's a 50-50 chance as to whether Yennefer Conjurer gets destroyed or One-Eyed Betsy gets destroyed, unless we go and use Liliana now, which, again, is tempting, although we have not really gotten the chance to use our preferred boosting target with the Eternian Mauler. We have been able to, have them destroy 2 of their own cards, which is really useful. So I do like that a lot. And that might still be the right choice here. I think we go here, and we can try to sneak in
Army's a waste of time for one like
a Mauler next to this Temerian Drummer. We want to get you up to 6 power at the very least. The big question is to Liliana or not to Liliana. And we could replay this Temerian Drummer, but that's likely to just become the lowest power unit, and we want to avoid that situation. So it really would be Cleanse. Get you up to an 8. I think that is worth it, especially because this is a card that's going to be really valuable, dealing at least 1 damage per turn, if not more. I mean, technically we're mitigating that damage with armor, but you know what I mean. Okay, good. It keeps Hedge Knight, the highest powered card, after the boost from Liliana as well. So that means even if Yennefer does survive, Hedge Knight is still going to tank that damage. And it is Melusine Cultist, which is going to keep on being the card that gets destroyed here at the end of their turn. It does mean Yennefer keeps on getting boosted, though. Although, that's why we're going to hold on to Morkvarg, Heart of Terror, because that means that he can then, if this does, continue to get more boosted, annihilate her for a ton of damage at the very end of the match. So now let's go... Reynard is good, yes. If they continue to play 3-power Melusine Cultist, we would love that. Because that means we could sneak in this Eternian Mauler. If we put it next to one of these Sumerian Drummers, it would get up to 5 power, which is a little more likely to survive than 4 power, but still certainly possible that they could overtake it. So I think, especially since we have 2 of them, we'll give it a shot here. So we do want to try to get this down as early as possible. Okay, well, they immediately trigger it and they immediately get rid of it. That's understandable. Yeah, so they, again, just a matter of they have smart AI on that occasion. Okay, so Olaf boosts Olaf by twice the amount he is damaged, same as in multiplayer Gwent. It means that we don't want to damage him. He will get more powerful if we damage him. If we can outright remove him, that's fine. But right now the problem is we might have had a turn in which to sneak in Reynard that is no longer as easy to do. Unless we, once again, break out a leader ability here, which, I mean, you could have made the case for doing that on Eternian Mauler, I suppose, but if we go that route, boost you up to a 7. Actually, you'll get boosted up to an 8 by this Sumerian Drummer. At which point, we're losing either this Sumerian Drummer or this Ramon. At the end of our turn, we'd prefer for it to be Ramon. That might still be worth doing. But I do want to get Reynard down if we can as well. Although, even if we play him at or near the end of the match, as long as we have some units on the board, he'll still get some value out of his deploy ability. Although that deploy ability does make it so that our other cards get bigger and easier to safely play. So that is saying something as well. Okay. Maybe 7 power. He's gonna boost everyone up, so they're gonna be 8s. You're gonna be a 9. So he would definitely still be the lowest card on the board, which is unfortunate because we would like for him to stick. We would like for him to stick. I think we will play him, and I think we will perhaps
Discipline shall bring us victory.
opt to use some boostage here. We do have a big lead, so it might not be necessary. But in the interest of keeping Reynard on the board, I mean, now we certainly have a big lead. So yeah, we lose Ramon. That's the card that we were most willing to sacrifice. Okay, so now they have lots of Skellige cards that damage themselves, or at least they would be Skellige in multiplayer Gwent. So once again, cards that we don't want to hit. It is a 5, which, as things currently stand, would be the lowest amount on the board. So that does make it easier for us to now sneak in this Eternian Mauler.
When I do the tenderizing, there's nothing left to fry.
Because he's a 6, so that means they would destroy their Wildkarl, or if they play something smaller, then of course that's going to be the card that gets destroyed. So that's nice, and we also would like to get the Sumerian Drummer down there early as well. Arnvald transforms something into a Bear Abomination, but it gets destroyed, and Wildkarl gets boosted up. Okay. So now I think we do sneak in Sumerian Drummer here, and at this point, I mean, on one hand, we'd like to boost up this Eternian Mauler as much as possible. It is not our most highly boosted card. So yes, we can get 4 damage out of it more if it gets boosted further. But is it worth more to just double a 15? It might be. It still might be. So there is perhaps reason to just go crazy, boosting up this guy here. So I think we will at least leave ourselves the option of doing that. Okay, Delirium split some damage across our cards, and yeah, we do actually, the lowest card right now was that Sumerian Drummer. Okay, So now we're either looking to double the Hedge Knight, or Eternian Mauler gets up to 16, at which point it has 12 damage. It can remove actually anything. If you do remove Olaf before he gets a chance to use his order ability, then, I mean, you can damage him. You just need to remove him in one fell swoop, basically. And that is something we would be capable of doing. So that is nice. Same could be said for Yennefer. At this point, she's not that effective because she's dealt a lot of damage over the course of the match. But if you can remove her early to reduce the total amount of damage, great. At this point in time, she is technically going to hit both these cards on their next turn because they're both tied for the highest amount. But 2 points per turn, or 1 point... It's still technically 1 point per turn because that armor. So, or we could destroy the Vildgar. I'm not sure they're really going to have the setup for this. Or Olaf, if we don't just... I mean, we could just remove them altogether. Morkvarg... Definitely don't want to use it on you. Technically could still use it on you, because it would not get you down to Berserk 2. What Berserk means is that if this card gets damaged down to a 2, then it activates its ability, which in this case would transform it into a 12 power card. So we don't want to hit it down to 12, otherwise it will become more powerful. But if you hit it down to 4 or 3, that's still fine. So that is what Morkvarg would do. So maybe we're not too concerned about this. Just a matter of, what do we double? So, I think we can double and destroy. Yeah. So we'll go, or, I mean, we have a number of options we can choose for that. I guess we'll go Morkvarg now, because technically the longer we wait to use this, the stronger it will become. So we'll do this, and we said it'll make you damage, which again means 1 power below your starting amount. So in this case, that's 4. And it makes it more likely that you are going to be destroyed. Unless they play Sabrina, which they play on our side of the board, and damages us when she gets destroyed. They, outside of Sabrina, would have had the lowest card. They still do after this, but now is a good time for us to boost up this Eternian Mauler. And hold on, though. That means we're at 14, which is good for 10 damage, which is good to remove. Yennefer would have preferred... Well, I mean, yeah. That's fine. Either that or... So I guess that's what? 7 extra points. And then we're getting... What did we say the damage was going to be? 14. So 7 points and 10 extra damage for 17 total value. 18 technically if you count that we're taking away Yennefer. Versus just 12 points. So yeah, this is worth more. Like so. And that'll be our last play. Now, it did turn out that we appear to have gotten a pretty huge advantage here. We saw, though, that there were some key moments, some key inflection points that could have gone the wrong way. But we were proactive. We made sure that we stayed ahead. Okay, so that was supposedly a hard encounter, despite it being a normal enemy. And I could see that, mechanically at least, was certainly more complex. But I think we did a good job of setting ourselves up for success there. So we can add to our deck. We can remove a card from our deck. I think we'll add. I think we will still add. So we have a slightly more powerful Zoltan. Boost adjacent units by 4, which is a good boosting finisher that we've used several times already to power up our boosting targets. We've not seen Trollololo Zeal, so that means we can use that order ability immediately, whereas normally we'd have to wait a turn. So we can play it on the same... We can use that ability as soon as we play it, the same turn. Lose all armor and boost up by that amount. Whenever you play a special, gain 3 armor. Slightly different than multiplayer. So basically, play a bunch of special cards, give it a bunch of armor, and then at the end of the match, probably, you'll convert all that armor into additional points. So it's another way to get a tall card. Doesn't necessarily synergize with our other stuff unless we just absolutely spam spells, which we could do, especially looking at our forthcoming boss battle. That is certainly a possibility. Then we have Thrive 2 immunity on the Alpha Werewolf, which I think we've seen before. So, And this is the most natural fit. This potentially does have the highest upside, but it is a little more hit or miss. Because either you play into this and really plan to maximize the boost, or you don't, and it's not worth much. So, technically we also have Reynard, who does give additional armor to cards when we play them, so that's a slight synergy there, but I think we keep it simple for now and just go with Zoltan. So we finished what was a somewhat difficult, or at least theoretically could have been, somewhat difficult normal battle there. However, we did spend a little bit of energy to do so, so we're just above 60, and we're going to a random event next, and we have not had the best luck with these in the past. I'm pretty sure that these are supposed to at least give you a decent chance of getting a good result, but that has not been the case thus far. Hopefully, that'll change, though. Stone Altar. You discover an altar with mysterious runes etched into its moss-covered rock. Offerings of fruit and flora adorn the shrine, presumably deposited by the locals to gain favor with the gods. These are hallowed grounds, it seems. Okay. We can offer and lose 5 energy. Surely there is some other upside there that I'm not familiar with. If that's not just, like, maybe you get a card or you upgrade a card, potentially. It just doesn't say it here, because otherwise, why would you ever do this? We could certainly use the energy right now. We were just talking about how we would like to have more going into our final encounter, and I think we are potentially going to see one more place of power before that boss fight, so we could get 20 energy there, but if we take the 20 energy here, we could instead do whatever other type of upgrade is available at that place of power instead. So it gives us that flexibility to do whatever we'd like later on. So that's probably the right choice. Otherwise, gain 50 energy, which is actually a little bit overkill, and gain a curse, which, lose 10 energy and remove self from your deck. That doesn't look good. I think we just go for the sure thing here. So we don't need that much energy. 20 is probably just about the right amount for us. We get the energy, and you kneel in the dirt beside the altar and bow your head in contemplation. Though you are not the praying type, to say the least, you use the opportunity to rest and reflect upon your journey so far, and you feel all the better for it. Nice. Okay, so that one certainly went a little more smoothly than the previous events. So now we are getting very close to this boss battle, and we have the choice of either going down south for one battle, and then the choice of a second battle, or this place of power, which I was saying is probably what we want to do, or we go straight into this battle here, and then I'm pretty sure we have no choice but to go boss battle. I don't think we'll be able to loop around like that, and so I think this does make sense. Now is probably not the time to be loading up on battles just before our boss, because we want to make sure we have as much energy as possible going into this, and, you know, there's not that much time for new cards to make a huge difference here, so I think it's the southern route in that case. Okay, Succubus Mistress. Alright, let's take a look here. What is the deal? So this also says hard, so I assume that, once again, that is supposed to be a reflection of how difficult this is, and given how we're right next to the boss battle, that does make sense that things are getting harder at this point. So at the end of your turn, move a random enemy with 2 power or less to the opposite row and boost it by 3. So basically that means if we have weak units, they are going to steal those weak units and boost them up a little bit. So similar to what we did in the previous encounter, we need to be careful here. We need to make sure that the cards that we play are strong enough that they are not going to get swiped out from under us. So I imagine that that means they will have damage. Oh, it is nice that it actually shows it right here, so we don't even need to hide our cards to look at it. Yeah, because that means that, I mean, we have very few cards to start on 2 or less power, right? So I think that means that in order for this to really kick off, they're going to have a lot of damage in their deck. So they're going to try to whittle down a 4 power card with, 2 to 3 damage, and then it gets within stealing range. So I think for that reason, obviously boosting is something we are going to want, so that way we can potentially avoid cards getting stolen. We also, I think, would also like armor, because assuming that they are using that damage to set up the steals, if we can mitigate that damage with the armor, then that makes it much harder for them to do the stealing. So I like the looks of that. That means 6 power Zoltan, great. 4 power Zoltan, probably still decent. And, of course, the boost will help us as well. I don't think the damage is going to be as relevant this time around. I think we're looking more at a boost-centric deck. Now, Nekker, in a long match, is good to build up power over time, but this is a good example of a card that is going to be easy for them to steal, and really the perfect target for them. So I think we dump you, and Reynard is definitely a big pickup. Okay. So right now, the Eternian Mauler is our only bronze unit, so that means Ramon can only create a second Eternian Mauler, which is not really what we're looking for here. I'm thinking we're probably starting off with Reynard, because he's high enough that he at least cannot immediately get stolen. We might even want to immediately throw a boost on him just to make it so that he's very clearly out of stealing range, even if they apply some damage. And he'll make it easier for us with all of our subsequent cards by giving them a boost so that they also are going to be hard for our opponents to steal. So for all those reasons, I think Reynard first does make a lot of sense.
Company, forward march!
And let's, at least at the beginning, let's play it safe here, because we deliberately played Reynard first because he is one of our best cards. And if they were to steal him, that would be a big issue. Okay, so what are they going to do here? I suspect they have damage. They do have damage. Botchling will damage the highest enemy unit by 1 every turn, which currently is a unit that has armor, so that is very nice. Ooh. And Trident Infantry is another target for our boost, and with 8 power, gonna be hard for them to steal this as well. So I do like this a lot. I think we can get you down and make you be a target of future boosts.
Awaiting your orders.
And damage that Botchling as well. It has the option to transform into a Lubberkin whenever they'd like, and that means that rather than damaging our highest unit at the end of their turn, they will boost their lowest unit at the end of their turn. So basically, this is its damaging form, that's its boosting form. The damaging form certainly synergizes more with what they're trying to do with the Succubus Mistress, so well, they will still make the conversion, though. Colossal Ifrit, there's the damage we're talking about. Damage all units in a row. Still fending off the ceiling thus far. So I think what we want here, let's see, what is the number? It's 2 is the threshold. I think what we want to try here, we should have made a second Trident Infantry with Ramon. I mean, we can still make an Eternian Mauler here, or even a Recruit for more boosts. It's not a terrible idea. I was going to say we go Eternian Mauler and put it next to Trident Infantry, so that way we can stick a Zoltan between them and boost both of them up, because they're both boosting targets. So that does intrigue me. I think that's probably still the answer here.
Hammer now. Ask questions later.
So Reynard will boost it and give it 1 armor, so it's up to 6. This Colossal Ifrit will deal all damage to all units in this row again after 3 turns. So it will do it again, but it's going to take a little bit of time before it can make that happen. So it does mean we technically would like to load up on this melee row a little bit more. Now, we did want to play these next to each other so we can set up a better Zoltan, but once we've done that, we'll shift gears more into the melee row. So is this high enough that we're confident it will not get into stealing range? I think we can take that chance. But we're about to find out. They switch back into damage form. It's another Yennefer Conjurer. We just saw one in the previous encounter. Damaging our highest unit once again. It's a unit that has armor. So this armor on the Hedge Knight is actually being really, really helpful right now. Okay, now technically speaking, we do want to play the Sumerian Drummer as soon as possible, and we would love to play it next to Trident Infantry. And then next turn, Zoltan next to these guys to boost them up. Yeah. Because the earlier we play this, the better it becomes.
Right, left, right.
And it does have armor, so it means, you know, we're mitigating this damage for the Colossal Ifrit. Keep on switching back and forth. Sheilard, oh no. Sets the power of our highest unit to 1. Highest unit in our hand, that is. Which was, I believe, 7 power Zoltan. So he is going to get stolen, is basically what that means. And fortunately, although we did lose a lot of power from that, he gets most of his value from that deploy ability, so we'll still benefit from that. We'll still get 8 points worth of boost from it, and when they steal him, they will not get any value out of that. They will, what is it, they boost him by 2, boost him by 3. So he'll become a 4 power unit that does not get that deploy ability for them, so that's at least something. And now we do have Sumerian Drummer again, and that is a card that we'd probably like to create a copy of, so let's get, I mean, again, should have used Ramon for this, because that was a higher power version of this card, so yes, that was technically a better option for us, but let's go here.
Not today.
Let's get
Tomorrow.
Sumerian Drummer down.
Again and again.
And technically speaking, we didn't do it. We didn't really set up this Eternian Mauler further on this turn, but right now, that was a selfish, quote-unquote, play, and that we're trying to maximize our own point total. But a case could be made for instead boosting up this Eternian Mauler more quickly and shutting down one of their cards like this Colossal Ifrit, like this Yennefer Conjurer, like this Lubberkin, which with slightly more damage on Eternian Mauler we could have made happen. We could technically use Liliana still to get this cleanse out, and at that point, Eternian Mauler would have the damage to perhaps destroy this Colossal Ifrit, which is about to hit us. I mean, that's honestly not that big of an issue, because we have 2 out of the 4 cards in this row have armor, so it's not really going to do much. But Yennefer might be a bigger deal. She's hitting you. You have armor right now, so it's not a huge deal either, although Trident Infantry is soon going to become our highest unit, so that will get damaged by Yennefer. Yeah, let's do it. It's going to be this. You have 6 damage, which is a little bit overkill, but I think it's still useful to get rid of Yennefer, because she, at this point, does still have a lot of time to gain additional value. Okay, there is the Ifrit. As we said, it's functionally just 2 damage, not the Mage Infiltrator, though. That's annoying.
No worries, my lord. I'll remain unseen.
Because it damages adjacent units by 3 when they play it. They play it on our side of the board, so it damaged our cards that we wanted to have boosted. We already used the Eternian Mauler ability, so that actually was good timing in that way, but it did weaken our Trident Infantry as well, and that was likely to be the card we wanted to use Girdle of Giant Strength on. We also drew into another Sumerian Drummer. Wow. Okay, in that case, we should, at this point, if we can, try to continue to load up in the melee row to avoid the Ifrit, and want to keep on further establishing Hedge Knight as the highest card that Botchling will hit. I mean, if we're gonna double Trident Infantry, then yes, but, I mean, this is pretty clearly our highest card right now. That could change if we play Girdle of Giant Strength on Trident Infantry and use the Soul's Hands to power it up more. So, I think we'll at least give ourselves the option. At least give ourselves the option of going this route instead. Vincent set a non-boosted enemy to 1 power. No, Trident Infantry was on exactly its starting power. 1 more boost, and it would have been impossible for them to use Vincent on it. So the timing there was absolutely perfect for them. Darn. Okay, so that does stink. That definitely means that Hedge Knight's going to be our target for our Girdle of Giant Strength. We do still have a big lead, because we have stopped them from stealing cards for a very long time. But I think now it's Recruit, so that we can make sure that we get more hand boosting here. Then again, yeah. It might boost up Sultan to the point where he's unstealable. In fact, wait, no, it's 1 boost. Yeah, no, it's still going to be stealable in that case. So let's play Zoltan first. Technically, if we play Zoltan here, yes, we're going to give a 4-point boost to Hedge Knight, but we're going to cut off the Temerian Drummer from boosting him further, which is unfortunate. I mean, it's toward the end of the match, so it's not a huge deal. But I guess we'll do it. So this will get stolen. Actually, it's 3 power is the stealing threshold. No, it's 2 power, so they can't do it.
Now you see me.
Okay, stealing Reynard is really good. And they need 1 more damage to do that, so that does worry me a little bit, but then again, we don't have that much more time to benefit from him, and they're basically playing these Mage Infiltrators. They did one of that before, and it deals damage to us, and it's a 1 power unit that they play on our side of the board, so it's something that they guarantee they can steal back. But even with that, still more than double their points here. And so I think, once again, well, now we'll look to Recruit so that we can make sure we get a little bit of hand boosting on this Sultan. So we'll go here, and I'm tempted to just give a little boost to you, but we won't.
Must be an important lesson in this.
Because at this point, at most, Reynard is giving us 1 more armor and 1 more boost on this Sultan, so if we do lose him, so be it. C is now stealable after the setup from the Ifrit. Roderick is another spy, so he plays on our side of the board.
Out of the way!
And it helps them play a bigger card from their deck. Oh, they just removed Reynard altogether. And stole Roderick instead, when they probably would have preferred to have gone the other way around. So that's one instance of, I mean, it's not the most obvious play, but that was technically a misplay from the AI there. So now let's go Zoltan Shive once again, this time. Further boost up this Hedge Knight. And at 25 power, boosting it up with Girdle Giant Strength, assuming they aren't about to mess with it, which they don't. At least, not beyond the botchling. Means this is going to become pretty darn huge. And get us over 100 points, so we are just hoping that they don't have something that automatically removes a tall card. Otherwise, we're in trouble. Even then, we should have enough. No, they're going to damage all units. But damaging everything by one once is not enough. Even after that steal, we almost double them. We still stay above 100. Okay, so what turned out to be a pretty convincing win there, but in part because we were aggressive a little bit with our leader ability early there, so we used a tiny bit of energy. Still add something to the deck? I think we will. We found that, for the most part, adding stuff has always been better than, or the things that we add have always been better than the stuff that we have in our deck already. So yeah, here's a good example of the white's little aura around it is sort of common. That means it's not any more powerful than usual. Blue, I guess, it's basically, it seems like every card, you can have the normal version of it, a slightly empowered version of it, a greatly empowered version of it, or a super duper empowered version of it with a gold glowiness, which I don't think we've seen yet. But so with the purple One-Eyed Betsy, yeah, so her deployability is still the same. It's 4 damage or 6 damage to a card that has armor, but it's the base power that's going up. I think she had 4 in the card that we have in our starting deck, so it's 3 better in that way. Whereas you, I think, normally have 4 starting power as well, so it's 2 better. Yeah, so it's basically, like, maybe this is even... I think we've seen some that don't have any glowiness at all, so maybe no glowiness is the usual starting power. The white glowiness is 1 additional starting power. Blue means +2. Purple means +3. And if we ever did see a yellowish gold, then that would mean +4. So in that way, One-Eyed Betsy is technically the best card that we see here. Is damage rather than boosting, and we are mostly a boosting deck. This is a boosting card. It's not a great one, but I think we might still go One-Eyed Betsy. Okay.
Is it snowing? Huh.
It would seem we are approaching the Dragon's Roost.
The blizzard will hit us hard at the summit. I hope we are prepared.
I hope so too. I hope so too. We do have a place of power just before the dragon, which I think is what we're going to look to do here. It's either that or it's another battle, but our energy, I mean, it's 78, which means it's probably overkill to go to this place of power specifically for the purpose of getting energy. We'd probably prefer to do whatever type of upgrade we can get here. And that way, I mean, it's probably a relatively minor upgrade at that, but it's something. Whereas if we go this route, I mean, hopefully we're not using that much energy, but there's a chance that we might need to use a fair bit in order to win this, in which case, you know, that's not the time we want to be going that route. So I think now is the time to play it safe and just make sure that we don't do anything to botch our chances of taking down the dragon at the last second. So I think we do go this route. And we had some questions about how much energy exactly do we want to have going to the dragon fight, because this could get us up to almost maximum. Is it even possible, mathematically speaking, for us to use 100 out of 100 of our energy in one encounter? Because I'm not sure it is. It might quite literally be mathematically impossible, in which case this is almost completely useless. So I think we are looking at transforming a card here. And we can transform anything. And I think we might transform the Nekker. We acquired it previously, and it is a good early round card. The problem with it is that we have a bunch of other early round cards that we like, such as Sumerian Drummer, such as Reynard, wherever you are, although he's become a little bit better in terms of a late play. Oh, we can't transform him, is why he's not showing up here, because he's our key card. We like playing Trident Infantry and or Eternian Maulers early to be the targets of our boosts. So it just means that it's been awkward finding times to sneak in the Nekker. So I think we do transform it. And we see what happens here. Whoa, okay. Tiny little Nekker transformed into a dragon. Villain Trettenmirth. After 2 turns on turn end, destroy the highest power unit on the battlefield. So, you need to be careful about this. This can destroy your own card. However, if your opponent has the highest powered unit, then it is a great way to shut that card down. So, the kind of thing that we want to be very, very mindful of when we use it, because if we have a super highly boosted Trident Infantry or a Durnian Mauler, then we could end up just destroying our own card that way and basically guaranteeing that we're going to lose. Or we could remove our opponent's best card and it becomes one of the best cards in our deck. So, certainly has the potential to be a huge upgrade for us, but does take a lot of planning. So I think we'll take that. I think that is probably still better than taking our chances on a battle that might have cost us additional energy. And that means there's just one thing left here. And that thing is popping into the boss battle. A powerful monster awaits you. Defeat it to obtain a mutagen. Let's do it. Alabastra, the White Dragon. Okay, so it's going to be tough. I imagine this will be significantly harder than any other encounter we've had thus far. It means we're definitely going to want to use our energy very aggressively here. So what does it do? Freeze an enemy unit. That is not in Gwent multiplayer. I have no idea what that does. Units with this status are destroyed when moved. Oh, that's interesting. So I suppose they'll move our cards around, or at least have the potential to do that. Okay, so freeze an enemy unit, cooldown 2. Whenever a freezing unit is destroyed, spawn a frozen adventurer on its row. Frozen adventurer at the end of your turn. If there are units on both sides of this card, reduce the counter by 1 when counter reaches 0. Banish self. Counter 2. Okay, so I think, trying to predict what this means, I think that means they're going to try to freeze our cards, move our cards to destroy them, and in doing so, create a frozen adventurer. And if they do that a lot, they're going to flood our side of the board with a bunch of wasted spots. These 0-point frozen adventurers that just take up valuable space. And so that means that at that point we might not be able to even play some of our own units. So that, I think, is what they're looking to do here. Do they start with anything else on the board? Left wing, if a freezing enemy unit is destroyed, freeze its adjacent units and damage them by 2. Deathmatch, your opponent draws a card. Right wing, freezing enemy units cannot be boosted. Deathmatch, your opponent draws a card. Okay, so we really want to destroy those guys. And we start with freezing adventurers. Okay, so for what it's worth, really wish these had 7 power, because if they did, we could then play Villain Trettenmirth and use a dragon against a dragon, and it destroys, it does not destroy every highest power unit. So if we had multiple ties, if everyone is tied for 6, it does not destroy everyone. It destroys a random card that has the highest amount of power. Or at least that's how it works in Gwent multiplayer, and it has the same ability in Gwent multiplayer. So, I mean, it's a 2 out of 3 chance that it destroys a card we want to destroy. It's a 1 out of 3 chance that it backfires a lot. So, that's a little scary. Alright then. It does seem like we want to try to destroy these wings to not only draw cards, which gives us obviously an additional advantage, but also makes it so that we can shut down the additional value they're getting when they freeze stuff. So cards like One-Eyed Betsy, actually 6 damage if they have armor, is enough to break through that armor altogether. But we would still need additional damage on top of that, which leader ability for some Alzur's Thunders in 2 turns could eventually make that happen. Love the music as well. Technically speaking, this is a part of the original, or not original, but part of the Gwent soundtrack for Way of the Witcher, I believe. The expansion for that. But it is composed a little bit differently. Different instrumentation. So really cool to see the way that they've mixed that up. They've done that on a few other occasions as well. And the Gwent soundtrack is great. But they've amped it up a little bit. So I think that makes it that much more effective. I think the earlier we get rid of these, the better. Oh, technically the One-Eyed Betsy is 7 power, so if we play her, she would definitely be the card that gets destroyed by Villain Trettenmirth. So I think that means we are going Villain Trettenmirth first. I think it does. And the Zoltans, technically speaking, again, having a high-powered unit is not great with Villain Trettenmirth. So this one is a little tricky. It just adds to the number of cards that could accidentally get destroyed by Villain Trettenmirth. And I think we do want to try to make this work by playing it first. So I think we'll play you, but we'll... Later on, after Villain Trettenmirth uses its ability in 2 turns, then you become safe, but I think we're looking to dump you for the time being. Endurnian Mauler becomes a potential boosting target, but we don't have a lot of boosting in our hand other than, I mean, there's Sultan. Cards cannot get boosted, though, if they are frozen. At least until we can destroy one of those wings. So maybe that means we're trying to wait a bit.
Creature.
It is, truly. I'd much rather capture its beauty than take its life.
Also, for what it's worth, in the Witcher universe, dragons are incredibly powerful. I mean, that probably goes without saying, right? But so much so that even Witchers, the things that the universe is generally named after, those don't even try to fight dragons. Witchers that are practiced and professional monster hunters do not fight dragons. So there's, you know, your indication of what kind of foe we are facing off against here. Ooh. Morkvarg is very interesting. Very interesting. Yes, damaging an enemy unit, in this case, means we automatically break through all of the armor and damage it once more to get it down to a 5. Which is almost enough, would be enough, in fact, on our next turn to go One-Eyed Betsy for 4 damage plus Alzur's Thunder to remove something. It does bring something out of removal range for Villain Trettenmirth, though. So the timing there is still a little awkward. I think it is still Villain Trettenmirth first, and then we need on our next turn one other smaller card to play so that we are not going to accidentally destroy our own unit. Technically we... Oh, no, she's not a unit. Okay, so we're not going to have stuff on both sides. Although, actually, we do want to banish these Frozen Adventurers to get rid of them. So, yeah, actually, it might have been best to play Villain Trettenmirth right there to dump you. Okay. So, is it worth using a leader ability to power you up? So, Villain Trettenmirth will not destroy itself, but it will destroy the next highest unit that is not named Villain Trettenmirth. So, we could still boost Villain Trettenmirth. We could start whittling away with Alzur's Thunder on one of these targets. Now, might mean that we end up wasting some energy on a card that we're going to end up destroying by Villain Trettenmirth anyway. So I think this might be a better time to go a different route here, possibly even Portal. Just don't want this to be a 6 or higher. It needs to be something on the smaller side. Reset the power of a unit. If it was boosted, give it bleeding for the duration equal to the boosted loss. It is 6. This is the strongest card here by a wide margin. This is also 6. We've seen it a bunch of times. Andrea Larva, though, is actually very interesting. Spawn in another copy of it, and it is a Thrive card, so it will gain value over time. It starts low, which is pretty much exactly what we're looking for here. We have officially bricked Villain Trettenmirth. So I forgot that Liliana is going to boost one of our cards whenever we play a spell. This is backfired. We are going to destroy our Hedge Knight. And I'm not sure we have a way around that. So we did not want to do that. Okay, this is different. Every 3 turns on the turn end, move a random freezing enemy unit to another row. Freezing units that get moved get destroyed. I mean, we'd actually kind of like for you to get moved right now, for what it's worth. Otherwise, we are about to destroy you anyway. Okay. Yeah, we walked into that one. We did walk right into that one, I'm afraid. So, this is getting destroyed. And Trident Infantry is not going to save that. We can't target our own card with Morkvarg, which I was looking at for a second there. No, it needs to be an enemy unit. That would have saved it, potentially. But One-Eyed Betsy also can't target our own card. That still wouldn't have been enough damage anyway. So, alas, mistakes were made. And that is unfortunate timing at that. But I suppose we'd like to get rid of this guy as well. Otherwise, what's going to happen is we're going to load up on more freezing units, and they're going to move them and just have a guaranteed way to destroy them. So don't really have a way to boost Trident Infantry, at least not yet. So I think we might even... We can create a copy of him. But he's not the best card to create a copy of. We'd prefer to create a copy of the boosting cards instead. Yeah, so our plan, the biggest problem is not only are we removing our own card here worth a fair bit of value, we're also losing one of our best ways to mess with the wings, which was our initial plan, and that really throws off our entire strategy here. So it's a double whammy. Double whammy misplay there. Yeah, I really wish I remembered that this was going to boost us and brick this entire combo. So now it's a matter of, do we still try to break through the wings, or do we focus on the Wild Hunt Bruiser instead? This is probably easier to get rid of since it does not have armor. Yes, Betsy has more damage against armored cards, but still 6 armor is a lot, and it would take a lot for her to break through that. So maybe we do target you and use our leader ability as well to guarantee that we finish you off. I think that's probably the plan here. Yes, it does mean that we are going to get another boost on one of our cards here. But we've accepted that Villain Treadmirth is going to destroy one of our own cards. We don't really want Thrive to get boosted because that makes it more difficult for Thrive to get boosted in the future. Okay, we also lost this Frozen Adventurer, Winter Queen, so it is very much an ice theme here. Okay, this is going to get boosted whenever we get frozen. This can no longer get boosted when it is frozen, at least as long as... What is it, this one? Yeah, as long as this wing is in place. So, now, however, we do have a Trident Infantry, and the Temerian Drummer with which to boost that Trident Infantry, which is nice, and probably something we want to set up as quickly as possible here. Would like to destroy you, but we don't really have the means to make that happen yet. Actually, what we want to do is remote into Temerian Drummer. And technically speaking, this is the best way to remove that frozen dude, but it means one less turn of Temerian Drummer boosting stuff. So I think we'll focus on the boost for now. We'll prioritize that instead. In terms of leader ability here, do we try to continue to whittle or start whittling away at the wings, or do we go after the Winter Queen? Because she is going to become quite big, I think, and difficult to remove. I think it's going to be hard to make that happen with Trident Infantry. Eternian Mauler would probably be more capable of it, because Eternian Mauler, we have a more targeted source of lots of damage against one specific target, whereas Trident Infantry tends to spread the damage out across more enemies. So it's going to make it tough. And presumably, are you freezing every turn? You're freezing every other turn, right? Yeah, but it is going to happen on their next turn, so that's going to get you up to 10. I think we do it, but I think we're going for the big one, the portal. And we're just seeing what we can get here. Okay. Interesting options. Damage enemy unit by 1, or if we're already boosted, damage them by 3 instead. Kind of useful. 9 power, just plain and simple, on Old Spirit Tip Asleep. Or Anna Strenger, who boosts the unit to the right of her by 1 at the end of our turn. Basically the same as a Temerian Drummer, unless she herself is boosted already, in which case she then boosts both to the left and right side of her. We're going to play her. And what you do is you put her next to a Trident Infantry. This is, or rather, next to a Temerian Drummer. This is a classic combo here, because Temerian Drummer boosts up Anna Strenger. She then becomes inspired, which means she's boosts not only Villain Treadmirth here, but also this Temerian Drummer. She's boosting on both sides of her. It means on our next turn, we can slot in a Trident Infantry in between these two, and it'll get boosted once by you and once by you, turning you into a really nice source of damage. So that's the plan. And also use this again if we really want to play another card, namely probably Portal, from our graveyard, which, I mean, if we get more engines like Anna Strenger, then we want to get those early, so I think we do give that a shot here. see what we get. So, Thrive 2 gets boosted by 2 whenever we activate Thrive. It's not bad. If they have boosted cards, I mean, they will. On this Winter Queen. We don't have to use this ability immediately. We could wait. Which is technically what we'd like to do. This gives us an answer for the Winter Queen. We can just sit on Bloody Baron, wait for that Winter Queen to get boosted up, and then at the end of the match, reset it down to a low number. So that is really tempting. Alternatively, we can damage enemy by 5. That is a lot. That is a whole lot. But unless we still had Betsy for the targeted damage, or had the ability to use another round of our leader ability, it would not be enough to take out Winter Queen. I mean, it's really close. But she is still going to get boosted by 2 on their next turn anyway. So it is going to be hard to catch her. But it is really close. Do we try to remove her before she gets boosted up, or do we say, it's okay if she does, we'll just reset her? I think we go for the resetting. And we should go here to try to remove this Frozen Adventurer. Okay, Wild Hunt Hound. Spawn 2 copies of self on this row. If there's a freezing enemy, boost self by 1. There are definitely freezing enemies. So, have stuff that moves. Oh, we got rid of the stuff that makes us move. So, Anna Strenger can no longer get boosted. However, she's already been boosted. So that was the key thing we wanted to make sure we got, was this little pocket in which to play Trident Infantry, because now it'll get boosted by 2 every turn and deal 2 damage every turn. Let's once again get really aggressive here on the leader ability. And I think we're looking at, I mean, Portal certainly has at least the best potential. We can get another Anna Strenger, which we don't have another Trident Infantry to benefit from that. However, Siana, repeat the deploy ability of the next unit that you play during your turn, is usually an amazingly powerful card. Like, incredibly amazingly powerful card. And do we have the stuff to benefit from that? Morkvarg could use him twice on his deploy ability. And that's another answer, actually, for Winter Queen, potentially. It's just going to drop her down to a 7, which is similar to what Bloody Baron is going to do to her. Or we could go after Wild Hunt Hound, which are not yet very boosted, but they will become boosted in the future. Just not quite sure we can make that be all that effective. We might instead just be looking for, perhaps even, another Anna Strenger here. And the positioning is going to be much harder to make work than what we have here. We could place her right in between these two and still get a double boost on this Trident Infantry, but between our frozen units that can't get boosted and other non-units that we have clogging up our rows, we don't have a natural place for her to boost cards by 2. I think we do this. I think we do still go this route. Ah, that stinks that Liliana is trying to boost up the Intriga Larva, which cannot receive boosts right now. Let's see, and have we taken our turn yet? We have. Okay. Played our card directly from our hand? Yes. So we get rid of one of those, actually both of the frozen cards. Okay, that is a card we want to get rid of, because they can move our frozen cards. And we certainly have some of those. So, do we have the damage, though, to deal with it? Because I don't think we do, at least not quickly enough. So, Anna Strenger is technically the best card for them to remove. And Morkvarg can get you down to a 5. Leader ability then could deal 3 more damage to you, get you down to a 2. That's still not good enough. Yeah. That guy's surviving, at least for one more turn. I think we do get down this Eternian Mauler here. And at least set up damage so we can remove this. Oh no, it takes 2 turns before it can do it. Okay, we have a little bit of time, in which case, yes. We go Eternian Mauler here.
When I do the tenderizing, there's nothing left to fry.
Now, technically, he's also in a 2-point per turn boosting pocket, much like Trident Infantry. It's just that I expect this one is about to go away if they destroy Anna Strenger. So, that still works well for us. If we use this, we've not yet used this. Might want to... see, your damage is going to be 1. Get boosted by 1, it'll be 2. Get boosted by 2, it'll be 3. So that means leader building now lowers you down to 3. Next turn, a Journeying Mauler should be able to destroy you. I think that means we go for the Thunder here on you. Okay, don't like that getting frozen, because this is a card we want to have boosted. Okay, these, they're just loading up on the Wild Hunt Hounds, and they are all going to get boosted, so that is going to add up. But now we use you to destroy you. That was the plan, because that was otherwise going to become a pretty big threat. We can still reset one of these highly boosted cards with the Bloody Baron, and we can get one down to the point where it's damaged with Morkvarg. So that is good, but still. The problem about using a bunch of portals is that we're going to eventually run out of space here, and then we might not have enough room to actually play the cards we have. Also, we want to use Girdle of Giant Strength on one of our most highly boosted cards, which right now would be Trident Infantry, but he can't get boosted when he's frozen. So that's a problem. Is there any way to unfreeze them? Because I don't really think so. I don't really think so. So that means we're just going to have to keep on going to backup plan number 1, backup plan number 2, or whatever it ends up being. So, technically speaking, the earlier we play Temerian Drummer, the better. And right now, we have to play it in the melee row, which means we'd like to boost up Ramon.
Left, right.
So we don't really want to boost Thrive.
Right.
At least not through Temerian Drummer. And you can't get boosted. Leader ability. So, technically speaking, we could have gone, and on our next turn could still do, Morkvarg into a 4-power Wild Hunt Hound, and then that drop it down to a 2, which would get into removal range for our leader ability, so that's something. I mean, it doesn't work now because we already played that Temerian Drummer, but that is technically something we can do even once these have been boosted a lot. So I guess we don't need to rush that. In fact, we'd actually prefer to do that to a highly boosted Wild Hunt Hound to lower their point total more. Okay. But what is our play here then? We have 1, 2, 3, 4 cards in this row, which means there's room for 5 more here in this row. 1, 2, 3 cards that we're planning to play from hand. We won't draw into any more. However, it means we theoretically can use a portal maybe one more time here and see what we get. Okay, so Tibor summons the top card from their deck to a random enemy row. It is a 13-point card, but it does mean that they're getting some value from the card that they summon out. So, don't know what that's going to be, if it's going to be worth that or not. Probably would be worth playing him as late as possible, because he's just a big point slam, and if we do get a card out on their side of the board that generates value over time, then that's not a good thing. We can give Vitality to one of our units. 2 units, actually. So that's an additional 8 points of value, assuming we can get that Vitality on stuff that is not frozen. Which might be easier said than done. Or you, and you'll get boosted by 1 every turn. Assuming that you get armor. I think it might actually be Iris here. I mean, outside the fact that Tibor could be a good target for the Girdle of Giant Strength, because he would, at least in the short term, be our highest card, but I'm concerned about summoning out a card from their deck, because they have a lot of Frost synergies here, and I'm not sure we want to add to that list, so I think we do still go Iris. Stop trying to boost the frozen cards.
I don't recall.
So let's give Vitality to our more highly boosted cards that we have better options for our Girdle of Giant Strength. And the reason why I'm going for you rather than you is because you're going to get boosted from the Temerian Drummer as well. So long term, this should become our other highly boosted card. I have no idea what this is. What is your deal? Consume a Frozen Adventurer, then boost self by 6. Cooldown 1. Oh. So that means they are going to destroy one of our frozen cards. And then they're going to absorb the strength from it as well. And they can do that every turn. That's bad. That's really bad. So this would be a great card to target with damage. The problem is we don't have a lot of that. We have Morkvarg, which is functionally 1 against an unboosted unit, which can get you down to 5. We... I mean, you might become the best card to reset, actually, with Bloody Baron and or Morkvarg. So maybe we don't overreact to that yet. Maybe we don't overreact to that yet. Let's go Zoltan and boost adjacent units here.
Double face!
So this is why, again, Ramon is going to eventually become our tallest unit here in all likelihood. That's kind of what we set up. So we still have 2 more units left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in this row. They might destroy this, in which case we'd have 5, which means we have room for either 3 or possibly 4 more cards in this row, which means we probably can still portal one more time. And in this case, similar options here. You can get another Ramon, although Ramon does not have anything that he can create additional copies of in our hand, because he needs to have bronze cards to do that too. I think it's too late to benefit from the additional boosts on Xavier, because we don't have too many turns left. And so we're probably just looking at the straight-up power on Old Spear Tip. Now, he has Veil, and Veil means that he cannot receive other statuses, and that includes, most notably, the freezing. So he cannot get frozen. And there's something to be said for that. And you could even deliberately have him be the target of your boosts here, because you know he's not going to get destroyed or consumed. Whereas if that happens to Ramon, we're in serious trouble. So, put him here for now. And that way, he also triggers Thrive, because he's a very high power base unit. So, what this does is we can play Zoltan next to these guys, and then boost up both of them. And it gives us the choice of either going for our initial plan of having Ramon be the target of Girdle of Giant Strength, or if something happens to him, this is our backup plan. I'm also concerned about how many more cards they have than us right now. Ardgeth puts a lot of frost on our row, which means damage the highest power unit by 2. Okay. Which is going to make it harder to benefit from Girdle of Giant Strength. We're technically getting boosted by 2 every turn as well. 1 from Vitality and 1 from Temerian Drummer, so those are functionally going to cancel out on Ramon here. So we were thinking... I think that this turn is Zoltan. Right here. We can't go Portal, because we need to make sure we have enough space for Morkvarg. Now, I imagine we will still have room for him, because this guy's gonna... Oh, the Frozen Adventurers, specifically the ones that we started off with, the ones that we got banished. The artifacts that started on our side of the board, the ones that went away over time once we played units next to them. Okay, thank goodness they're not about to consume an 11-point Trident Infantry. Otherwise, that would be a pretty serious problem. Okay, so that's good news. In that case, I think we can be more aggressive here. Boosting up Ramon, I think that is probably the plan. We can't go Portal, so we'll run out of space. Do we have anything we want to destroy here? I mean, I think for the most part, we're looking at Bloody Baron and Morkvarg to shut down their most highly boosted cards, which is going to be Winter Queen and or a Wild Hunt Hound. So let's do this to help set up a bigger Girdle of Giant Strength. Moving unit. They're going to try to move, yep, one of our frozen units. We almost, in fact, you could have made a case for us immediately playing Morkvarg so that they were not going to be able to move at all, because you can't move if a row is full. So, with that in mind, we probably will play Morkvarg here. And we play in this row. That means they can't move any of these guys. If we play in this row, that means they can't move Anna Strenger. Anna Strenger is probably providing more value than these guys are at this point, especially since they can't get boosted. So I think that means we're playing Morkvarg in this row, on this turn, and you did get boosted there. Didn't see what that counted as, how that technically happened. So you're +6. You're plus 5. You're plus 8. So you are the most highly boosted card. But what I'd kind of like to do is use Bloody Baron on you on our last turn, because we can still wait to do that. And use Morkvarg plus Alzur's Thunder to completely remove their most highly boosted Wild Hunt Hound right now. So I think that's the plan here.
We'll turn to see red.
So either of these guys. So again, he damages until they're 1 power below their starting power. So in this case, that's 2, which means we can finish you off. And the reason why this is valuable is because, yes, we got rid of a reasonably powerful card. Oh, I like the extra boost on Ramon. But we got rid of a reasonably powerful card. But more importantly, well, maybe not more importantly, but it does prevent them from receiving additional boosts. So my concern was going to be that maybe they were going to freeze Ramon on their last turn, and then we weren't going to be able to boost him, and that would have been a pretty big problem. But we can still do this. So I think our plan now is we technically can still squeeze in another unit if we wanted to. Do have a big lead, but they have 3 cards remaining here. We only have 1, so bear in mind they're going to be able to go longer than we are. So we could get a portal with this here, or we could boost up Ramon a little bit more and then use Girdle Giant Strength to power him up for an even bigger finishing move. We're going to use Bloody Baron on this Winter Queen for minus 12 on her. So that, I mean, we can pretty much do that right now if we really wanted to, but... So this is what? If we boost you up, it's 3 and then double it for an additional 3 for 6 points of value. Can we get more than 6 points of value from a portal? I think we can. Okay. Ooh. In fact, we can absolutely do almost the same thing we were trying to do before. Nekker, 5 power unit, and has Zeal, so we can use that order ability on the same turn that we play her, and can boost a unit by 1 4 times. So it's basically just a objectively better version in basically all ways to boost up Ramon if we want. Otherwise, we can damage the unit by 5. Could, when combined with Bloody Baron, remove another Wild Hunt Hound. I'm not sure that's good enough at this point to be worth doing, or just a 9 power body, but no, this is definitely the right answer here.
Nasty wounds, those. But you'll live.
So we boost up Ramon further. Now we have both rows completely full, so they can't move anything, which means they shouldn't be able to destroy cards that have the freeze on them. So now we do this for huge Ramon finisher, and we reset this Winter Queen down to an 8, and technically we're going to get bleed for the amount of boost we removed, because that is what Bloody Baron does when he himself is boosted, when he uses his order ability. Now we're not going to benefit that much from that bleed, because they're not going to have much time to take that damage, but alas, we have almost 100 more points in them, and we should have shut down one of their combos by preventing them from destroying our frozen units. So let's see how this plays out here. That was our last card. We're going to continue to generate a few more points. Oh no. I don't like the looks of that. Damage unit by half its power when we have a huge 50-point unit. One more card here. Can they catch us? I don't think they can. We'll hold on to beat the dragon. Mission accomplished. Alabastra, the White Dragon, has been defeated. And, of course, it took a very long time for us to do it. But win streak 1, enemies defeated 6, elites defeated 1, total score just under 800. Very slow. I'm sure we'll speed things up as we go on and are not talking about all the mechanics in both the Rogue Mage in general and the cards themselves. But, that was a lot of fun. And we leveled up a bunch of times here, so I was curious to see what benefits we gain from doing that. And it looks like the answer is a whole lot of things. We reached level 13, apparently. Okay, hold on. What's the deal here? Reinforcements 1. So does this mean we have additional cards that we have the option of getting, including Amy Flaminica, War Elephant, Swallowed Priest? I know those cards from Gwent multiplayer, but they might be different in Rogue Mage. Treasure cards. Oh, we can see them this way. Okay. So Flaminica, heal all other units in the row, same as multiplayer. War Elephant, damage adjacent units, and then boost self by the amount that you're damaging. Cooldown 3, so you can use that multiple times. Swallowed Priest, at the end of your turn, damage the unit to the right of it, but then boost itself by 2, so damage yourself by 1, but boost yourself by 2. That's same as multiplayer. Cloak of Invisibility, that's not a card in multiplayer. Boost an allied unit by 15, and gain immunity and fail. That's cool. Erendite, damage an enemy unit by 3. If you destroy the unit in the process, increase the damage by 1 permanently. Oh, it's passive, so it stays on the board and starts there on the board. Euromets, give vitality to all allied units on this row for a duration equal to their base power. So Synthesis, immunity, or we can take away that immunity for a little bit if you'd like. Drowner, thrive, and move an enemy unit, and damage it by 2. So yeah, we've unlocked these cards. Thunderstorm is a spell, is that one that we can start off with Alzur. Split damage equal to the number of units on an enemy row randomly between those units. That's nifty. Nut the Callus, damage an allied unit to the right by half its current power, then damage an enemy unit by that amount. So if you have cards on your side that actually benefit from taking damage, that's useful. Ida, purify unit, or give a unit vitality. Wagenberg, if it has armor, at the end of our turn, give armor to adjacent cards. Prism Pendant, your spells cost half energy. Ooh, that's kind of nifty as well. Visigoda of Corvo, one of my favorite cards from multiplayer, because one of the first high-rarity cards that I unlocked. Boosts an allied unit by 1. Starts with 1 charge, but gains charge whenever we play a card, so... And it is a key card. Okay, so this can get upgraded when we defeat an elite enemy. That's cool. That's cool. So very good boosting-centric card. Similar to the type of deck that we played in our previous run. That would have been really helpful as well. So then Giant Slayer, that's totally new. Destroy the highest power enemy unit. That's also very useful. Ancient Golem, also new. Only a matter of time until... Oh, it's dormant for now, but just wait until it comes out. Doedric, draw a card, then move a card from your hand to the bottom of your deck. Basically a consistency tool. Use it so that you can get the better cards in your hand and get rid of the weak cards. Drog, transform all their units in the row into K20 Revenants, a different type of card, without changing their power. A way of turning cards that wouldn't normally have additional value into ones that do. Witch Apprentice, and we'll talk more about these cards when we actually see them in the game directly. At the end of your turn, if units on your side of the battlefield have a total power of 25 or higher, boost self by 2. Confiscated Oils. Gain 3 additional mulligans. A potion. We've never seen one of those before. Then we have Iris Shade. Remove a unit's armor and boost self by that amount, and you can use it every other turn. Eggman's. Damage an enemy unit by 3. At the end of your turn, if the order is not used, boost the unit to the right by 1, kind of similar to a Trident Infantry, or rather a Temerian Drummer, except that it has the option of dealing damage as well. Redania Knight at the end of your turn, boost self by 1. When this unit loses its armor, move it to the other row and damage the highest power enemy unit by 3. Spell, another one here. Transform an allied unit into a random one. Okay. Random transformation. Okay, or evolution in this case, if we're going to call it that. Prophet Lebiota, whenever you play a unit next to Prophet Lebiota, give it a shield for damage mitigation. Living Armor, this unit's armor value is always equal to its power. At least in multiplayer, starts out with a lot of armor, which means you're getting a quick point slam out of that, and if you do have a way to scale armor on it, then it can get even stronger still. Redanian Archer, damage an enemy unit by 1, have 1 charge, but as long as it has armor, it's going to gain 1 more charge every turn. So those are all the things we unlocked. I imagine that means that we don't start with them, per se, but we have the option of having them or acquiring them later on, whereas we saw in our first playthrough that we saw a lot of the same cards popping up, even when we had the option of gaining new cards from various different sources. We're currently in the process of working our way toward Pit Fighter. This unit starts in your hand, upgrades self by 3 each time you defeat an enemy, and by 6 each time you defeat an elite enemy. Oh! So it starts off weak, but over the course of an entire run, it gains in power till, if you make it all the way to the final boss, it could be very potent indeed. So that's really cool. I was curious to see how the roguelike elements would play in here, and in some ways, a little more into the roguelite territory, in truth. Because there are some benefits that can carry over from one round to the next, at least sort of indirectly here. Not entirely sure exactly how it calculated how much experience we got, but we got a lot, obviously, getting our first several levels out of that. Let's continue here. And where does this lead us? This is your lab. Here you can find your unlocked items, start new runs, and track your progress. Okay. Select the map lets you set up and start a new run. Okay, sure. In the treasure chest, you'll find your unlocked decks and treasures. We just unlocked a bunch of them, so that's cool. Selecting the portal returns you to your active run, assuming that you have an active run. Okay. In the notice board, you will see your progress, your achievements, and how you rank against other players. In the grimoire, you can check your list of spells, both locked and unlocked. Oh, okay. We can see what we might have awaiting us in the future. In the alchemy station, you will find your collection of potions. We've only, I think, acquired one of those thus far, each of which will provide a passive bonus for your run. Oh, okay. So that's definitely a more roguelite, permanent buff type of thing. And so picking up those potions could be really useful then.
We've got the ingredients. Now we need the brewing pot.
You mean human subjects?
Oh,
What else would I mean?
You scare me at times.
okay. Now that we've collected all 3 mutagens, select the liquid tanks and pull the switch. Oh, okay. I guess we collected these over the course of that previous run there. Conduct our experiments. Brace yourselves. Okay, we have a green, a blue, and a red mutagen. What could possibly go wrong, right?
Alzur and Lily, eager to see years of research come to fruition, were finally spurred to action by a chance encounter. In a nearby village, a brute of a man had been sentenced to death, yet he did not find his fate at the end of the hangman's rope. Instead, the mages purchased his life, for he was the perfect vessel for their experiment. Sure of their science, they promptly began sedating the man and flooding his veins with myriad concoctions. As expected, the subject mutated, but most violently so. His body, twisted by the tinctures, warped into a foul abomination. With newfound strength, the monstrosity broke free from its bonds. Bewildered and bitter, it lashed out in frenzied rage.
Oh!
Jagged claws pierced Lily,
No!
rending flesh from bone. Alzur fought the monster back, but try as he might, kill it he could not. With violent urges sated, the failed experiment fled from the laboratory, leaving Alzur alone to wallow in the wake of his failure, which was absolute. Darkness and despair consumed the mage for days, weeks, months, until eventually sorrow paved the way to a solitary purpose. Alzur would ensure above all else that his beloved Lily had not died in vain.
Whoa.
My dear Lily, I am a husk without you. Our memories, our cause, it's all I have left now. I won't fail you again. I'll make your vision come true, no matter the cost.
Wow. Okay, so a whole lot happened there. We, of course, finished our first run, including taking out the final dragon boss fight. We conducted an experiment using the mutagens that we collected along the way, and in doing so, created a vile abomination, a failed experiment that turned right around and murdered Lily. So I suppose that means it just will force us to get back on the path here with renewed vigor and find a way to make sure that we correct our mistakes and find an answer, a solution to our cause here. But thank you all for watching. I think this is a good place for us to wrap up here. We will, of course, by the looks of things, continue to play some more Rogue Mage here. I'm having a lot of fun. Hope you guys are as well. So, with that being said, I'll catch you next time.